Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, saith the Lord, for they are good and they are not evil. They are to prosper you and to give you a hope and a future." But what does that scripture really mean? Like, what does it really mean? Does God really have a plan for our lives? He does. I was raised in a good pastor's home with a wonderful, loving family. I loved God as a young age. But when the church began to fall apart and people called themselves Christians, were backbiting and gossiping and tearing one each other down, it really caused a lot of insecurity within me, which caused bitterness. And bitterness will bring you to a road of complete destruction if you continue to let it fester inside of you. We left the church in Oklahoma and we traveled on the evangelistic field. I felt more insecure because I had a learning disability. I understand about difficulties. I understand about not feeling like you're pretty enough or you're worthy enough or that you're good enough or that you're smart enough when you really are. But I felt alone on the evangelistic field. I felt like God had abandoned us. If God was such a loving God, why would God let such bad things happen to good people? Why would He let a church split and my mom and my parents almost end up in divorce and all of these things that happen? Why would God do that if He loved us so much? I just really didn't want nothing to do with Him. I'd always had a struggle with my weight. And so I found myself comfort eating, and I would eat bags of chips and all this junk food. And by the time I was 15, I was 200 pounds plus. I decided I didn't want to be big anymore. I started this eating disorder called bulimia. And at first it was just here and it was just there. Then it became more of a lifestyle. I was raped at 16 while we were on the field in Houston. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time and being raped and feeling like, well, I'm really not worth anything at all. So I quit school and I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. The person you hang out with will be who you become. I took my first hit of cocaine at 17 years old, and at that moment when I took that hit of cocaine, I was beautiful. I had never felt beautiful in my entire life. And when I took that hit of cocaine, I was beautiful for the first time. And all of my insecurities went away, and that was the moment I was wrapped up in the drug life. And eventually from the cocaine, it went to methamphetamines, and from meth, it went to heroin. I was an IV user for about 7 years. Being a drug addict for all this time, at first it's all gravy, and I had the sugar daddies and the fast life and the cars and the furs and the diamonds and the money and the men and the strip clubs, and I had all of that. That was my lifestyle, but yet it was so empty. It was so empty. Then eventually, it all comes crashing down. It's like a tower of blocks. And you take one piece out here and there and here and there, and finally it just comes crashing down. I remember taking a big shot of dope at my dealer's house underneath the tree in my car. And I was on the run from God. Like, I want nothing to do with God. I was racist. I was hateful. I was mean. I carried switchblades and not guns. And I was just hardcore, like hardcore. I remember saying, God, if you're real, then you need to show me. Help me to live again. I'm only existing. I'm not living. Within 2 weeks, I found out I had 17 different charges against me and $1.5 million bond, and I was going to jail. And the charges was a manufacturing, delivery, possession of a controlled substance, forgery, organized crime, you name it, it was on there. I turned myself in on the $1.5 million bond. They got all the charges dropped down to 2, and on those 2 charges, they asked for 45 years my first time down. 45 flat, no probation, no nothing, prison, 45. I went to prison and I served 18 months out of my prison sentence. And prison is no joke. If you're down a road of destruction, of crime, of doing those things that I have done, you need to stop and take a look at yourself, because you don't want to end up in prison. I promise you. I was bulimic, I was anorexic, I was sick, I was on all kinds of psychiatric dope, and I spent 7 months in the prison for the mentally insane in Rusk, Texas. But in prison is where I began to search for God. Because see, in the world, I was so out there that God could not even get my attention. He had to take all that away from me and put me in a cell, an 8x10 cell, for me to listen. And so I told the Lord, I said, God, if you parole me out of prison, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to do anything that you want me to do if you just release me from this prison cell. And you know, God allowed me to make parole, I believe, to test me. And I failed tremendously. And within 2 weeks of the day that I got out of prison, I was right back to my addictions. We have to have a heart change, not a mind change. Because when we have a heart change, our mind changes too, and they coincide with one another. And then we follow God, but we cannot do it without a true heart change, truly wanting to serve God. After 11 months of struggle, I decided that I would go to a faith-based recovery program. But I wanted to go see an old friend of mine one last time, and I did, and I got completely rejected by this guy that I truly loved with everything inside of me, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I got high and I got drunk. Just 3 weeks later, I was given a 40-year prison sentence for breaking my probation. And so my parents, they said, Janie, don't give up. We'll pray, we'll believe, we'll talk to the attorneys, we'll do whatever we have to. The most respected, highest paid attorney in our area said that he hasn't seen of a sentence like this overturned in 55 years in the state of Texas. So basically it was impossible. But with God, all things are possible. I was transferred back to Women's State Prison to serve out my 40-year prison sentence. And at that moment is when I realized that I must give my life to God. My way wasn't working. It's God's way that works. So I repented and I asked God to save me. I have nothing left to give you, but I'll give you what I have. It's broken, but you can have it. And I said, Lord, if you would please overturn this sentence and send me to the faith-based program that I need to go to so that I can become the woman that you've called me to be, then do it. But if not, Lord, then give me grace to accept the fact that this is where I'll spend most of my life, and give me peace and love to do it. And it was at that moment that I believe that God opened the windows of heaven and heard my prayer and heard my cry.
You can have your way, have your way in me. You can take my life, Jesus, consecrate me unto thee. I just need your love, oh God, to come and comfort me. Oh, no matter what I face, God, have your way in me.
My previous attorney said, I'm going to take up the case again pro bono and we're going to try. The judge who sentenced her has resigned. So we petitioned the new judge for a new trial. I was 84 pounds when I went in front of her. She went back and she made her decision, and when she came out, she said, Ms. Burkett, this has been a very hard case. She said, because what you did is unacceptable with this court. She said, if I could give you a 60-year prison sentence and probate it, I would, because what you did was unacceptable. She said, however, that would not be merciful, nor would it be compassionate. I'm going to confine you to the Women's State Prison for 10 years with a $10,000 fine. And when she said that, I was just like, it's better than 40. She said, however, I'm going to probate that sentence, that you go to the faith-based program, you complete the program, and you make something of yourself. Wow. And I was released from a 40-year prison sentence. I should not even be here today. I should be locked up in a prison cell somewhere and dying with bulimia and anorexia. But I'm not. I'm here talking to you because God loved me that much that He wanted me to be set free so that I could share the good news of the gospel, because He knew that my heart had truly changed.
I just need your love, oh God, to come and comfort me. Oh,
Everyone has their own stories. That's mine. I knew from that moment that God loved me more than I loved myself. When I was in the faith-based recovery program in my 5th month, I was having such a struggle because I was having to gain this weight, and I hated myself because I had to gain this weight, and weight to me was ugly. And so in my 5th month, I got in the prayer closet and I asked God to give me new eyes. I wanted to see myself differently. I wanted to see myself the way that He's seen me. And so when I was in that prayer closet and I prayed, God spoke to me and He said, then I want you to go on a mirror fast. I don't want you to look in the mirror. No makeup, no nothing. So for 7 days I did not look in the mirror, and I prayed and I fasted from the mirror for 7 days. And on the 7th day, God had completely healed me. The bulimia was gone. My hair was more beautiful. My eyes were beautiful. Like, I saw myself truly the way that God sees me, and I was different. I began to love God and follow after God and read my Bible. Like, I just changed from that moment on. And I graduated at 130 pounds. And ever since then, I've been speaking and doing what God's called me to do. And I know that God is bigger than my struggle, and He can do the same for you, what He has done for me. You must trust Him and give your life to Him.